In a secluded village by thick forest and a winding river, people lived by simple, unbreakable principles. The villagers respected the wisdom of the elders, honored family bonds, and upheld moral boundaries, which they believed protected their community from ruin. Among them was a beautiful young woman named Naomi, whose beauty was as radiant as the morning sun over the village. Naomi was admired by many. Her features were delicate yet captivating, drawing the eyes of men and the envy of some women. But beneath her graceful appearance, Naomi wrestled with a darkness she kept hidden, a silent turmoil that grew as she watched her family's lives unfold. Her brother, Chima, who had always been her confidant and closest companion, had recently married a kind-hearted woman named Ada. The village had celebrated their union with song and dance, and Ada was warmly accepted by all, loved for her quiet strength and selflessness. Naomi tried to be happy for her brother, but she couldn't deny the pang of jealousy that settled in her heart. Each time she saw Chima and Ada laughing, sharing quiet moments, or walking together on their small farm, Naomi's loneliness deepened. She felt forgotten, as though Ada's presence had replaced her bond with her brother. Resentment began to fester, slowly transforming her once gentle heart into something unrecognizable. Naomi's jealousy grew into an overwhelming obsession. She started having strange, forbidden thoughts about her brother, convincing herself that her deep desire to be close to him was something more. She believed that if only Chima could see her as Ada did, he would understand the love she held for him, even if it defied what was right. Late one night, while Chima and Ada were away at a village gathering, Naomi felt a surge of desperation. She devised a plan to drug her brother, hoping to have him all to herself, thinking this twisted act would somehow draw him back to her. The thought haunted her, yet she pursued it, clouded by jealousy and an irrational desire that had consumed her heart. She prepared a drink laced with a sleeping powder and waited for Chima to return. Her hands trembled as she poured the concoction, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. She told herself this was her last chance to regain her brother's attention, to make him see the depth of her longing. As she waited in the dimly lit hut, footsteps approached. She held her breath, listening to Chima's familiar voice as he entered the home. But unexpectedly, Ada returned with him. Naomi's heart sank as she quickly hid the cup, but her mind raced for a way to continue with her plan. Chima, exhausted from the long day, retreated to rest, unaware of the storm brewing in Naomi's mind. Naomi's resolve only hardened, and as the night deepened, she seized her chance. She managed to slip the concoction into a drink and offered it to Chima. Trusting his sister, he drank it without hesitation, soon falling into a deep sleep. With her heart racing, Naomi approached her brother. She felt an intoxicating rush of triumph as she leaned over him, her intentions dark and desperate. But just as she was about to act, the door creaked open, and Ada stepped inside, her eyes widening in horror as she took in the scene. Naomi froze, caught in the act, her heart pounding in her chest. Ada stood in shock, unable to comprehend the betrayal by her own sister-in-law. "Naomi!" Ada gasped, her voice trembling as she called out, disbelief etched across her face. "What are you doing?" Naomi's worst fears were realized. She stumbled backward, ashamed yet unable to deny her actions. Desperate, she fell to her knees, pleading with Ada not to reveal her shameful intentions. But Ada, horrified and distraught, felt that the truth had to be known. Without a word, Ada turned and rushed to the village square, shouting for help. She sounded the drum, a call that was reserved for the most urgent matters, and the villagers awoke in alarm, gathering around the square as Ada's cries echoed through the night. Villagers whispered in confusion, wondering what could have prompted Ada to call for the elders. Some had torches in hand, lighting up the square as they surrounded her, their faces a mix of fear and curiosity. Ada stood trembling but resolute as she recounted what she had witnessed, revealing Naomi's treachery. When Naomi was summoned, she walked to the square with her head low, unable to look at the villagers who had once admired her beauty and grace. Her heart pounded, and her body shook with the weight of her guilt. She felt the eyes of her community, each one piercing through her, leaving her stripped of the dignity she had once known. The head elder, an old man with wise eyes and a voice as deep as the forest, asked Naomi to speak. With tears streaming down her face, Naomi confessed. She spoke of her jealousy, her loneliness, and the dark desires that had taken over her heart. The villagers gasped, horrified, as her confession unveiled a side of Naomi they had never imagined. When she had finished, the elders gathered to discuss her fate. They recognized the gravity of her actions but also saw the remorse that weighed heavily on her. After a long deliberation, they announced their decision. Naomi would be forgiven, they said, but her place in the village would be forever changed. She would carry the mark of her shame, and she would never regain the trust she had once held. The villagers murmured among themselves, some shocked by the decision, while others nodded in agreement. Forgiveness, after all, was a value they cherished, but so was the integrity of their community. As dawn broke, Naomi was left standing in the square, alone. The crowd dispersed, but she felt the weight of every gaze that lingered on her. She could feel their whispers, the judgment in their eyes, and the invisible mark of shame that had now become part of her. Days passed, but the burden grew heavier. Naomi tried to continue her life, but every encounter reminded her of the trust she had shattered. Children avoided her, neighbors looked away, and even those who had once been her friends distanced themselves, unable to reconcile the Naomi they had known with the one who had committed such an act. Unable to bear the constant reminders of her shame, Naomi made a decision. She packed her few belongings, leaving behind her home and everything she had known. In the early hours of the morning, as the village lay silent, Naomi slipped away, vowing never to return. She walked toward the rising sun, away from the village that had been her whole world, carrying only her regret and the hope for redemption. Naomi wandered from village to village, seeking a place where she might find peace. But wherever she went, her reputation seemed to follow. Word had spread, and whispers greeted her arrival. People eyed her with suspicion, and doors that were open to others remained closed to her. Survival became a daily struggle as Naomi was forced to find food and shelter on her own, often sleeping under the stars or in makeshift shelters. She faced hunger, loneliness, and the harsh reality of life as an outcast. The burden of her past haunted her, a shadow that followed her wherever she went. As time passed, Naomi realized that the only way to find peace was to live a life of humility and service. She began to help those in need, tending to the sick, assisting elderly villagers with their chores, and showing kindness to strangers. Her heart, once clouded with jealousy, now yearned to make amends, even if no one ever forgave her. In one village, she met a young girl who reminded her of herself before her fall from grace. The girl was troubled, struggling with jealousy over her younger sister's beauty. Naomi took the girl under her wing, sharing her story as a warning, hoping the girl might learn from her mistakes. Years went by, and Naomi's once beautiful face grew lined with age and hardship. But her spirit had transformed, softened by reflection and the wisdom born from suffering. She no longer desired beauty or admiration, instead, she sought peace within her heart. As she traveled, stories of her kindness began to spread. Some villages even welcomed her, recognizing her not as the woman who betrayed her family but as one who had learned the value of humility and redemption. People began to see her as a cautionary figure, a living reminder of the dangers of jealousy and unchecked desires. One evening, an elder in a distant village invited Naomi to speak to the young girls gathered around the fire. Naomi told her story, sharing the pain her choices had brought her and the peace she had found only through atonement and reflection. Her words carried the weight of experience, resonating with the girls who listened in silence. Her tale spread, reaching even her old village, where it became a story told by elders to caution the youth. Naomi was no longer remembered solely for her shame but also for her journey of redemption, as someone who had fallen yet found a way to rise. The tale of Naomi's shame became a legend in her homeland, a story that reminded the villagers of the importance of moral boundaries, the power of forgiveness, and the weight of guilt. The elders would gather the young girls and boys, recounting Naomi's tale and the path she took after her exile. They would say, "Forgiveness is a balm, but it does not erase the scars of our actions. Be wary of the desires that harm, for they leave wounds that time alone cannot heal." And so, Naomi's story was passed down through generations, a testament to the cost of jealousy, the strength found in redemption, and the peace that can only come from a heart turned toward goodness.